This is Art Television.
Coming up, State of Business, sponsored by
IWS Aviation.
Hello there, you're watching our television. This is State of Business. I am Pamutha Katukampala. Our top stories. Nation faces exodus of talent. A young MP stresses. Government shows 1 trillion in revenue. Welcome back, you're watching State of Business, and now let's have a detailed look at today's stories. Now, Parliamentarian Mayantha Dissanayake addressing Parliament on Saturday highlights issues faced by the youth of the country. In doing so, parliamentarians stressed the need to secure the future of the country.
It is my belief that the youth of this country is our greatest asset. I also believe, Honourable Chairman, that we must hand over a country or hand down a country to the next generation that is a better country than what we inherited from our parents. I know when you talk about our parents, I don't mean any disrespect, and I know my parents, I give them merit and I think about them every single day. However, we must look at where we are today in this country. We have 2,500 years of great history in this country, recorded history. We are 45 years, nearly 45 years of independence in this country. But where are we? Has this system brought us the changes that we require? Has this system brought about political stability? Has this system brought about economic stability? Can we move forward in this manner? Or, when the Honourable Prime Minister is here, a great friend of my father's, I would like to ask the question, Honourable Chairman, must we now look at a completely new system?
Speaking further, Parliamentarian Dissanayake highlighted how the government has failed to adequately address the impact of the COVID pandemic on the youth.
In 2020, we had a global pandemic, the corona pandemic. The entire world was shut down. People lived in fear and in isolation. We had that in this country also. But for the youth of this country, I think socially they were somewhat isolated. We have not, although we talk about it, we have not yet implemented a system where to catch up in terms of our education and our experience and our exposure to other youth. We have not implemented a system or a program to bring them up to speed. Now, other countries in the world, especially the developed countries in the world, are reopened schools, social interaction is taking place, and to some extent, you can't catch up lost time, but to some extent, the youth of those countries are actually catching up in their social interactions and their educational advancements.
And taking these realities into account, Parliamentarian Dissanayake stresses that there is an exodus of youth and professionals from the country.
Honourable Chairman, the youth are leaving. Educated people are leaving this country. Professionals are leaving this country. We are once again faced with an immense brain drain. It is very simple and very easy, Honourable Chairman, even for businesses in this global economy to move around. Businesses from Sri Lanka are moving to countries like Bangladesh. Garment factories are closing down. So it is nice to have a policy in place, but Honourable Chairman, we need to come together in terms of implementing and maybe perhaps stop petty politics in this country, because the point I'm trying to make is that system that we have implemented all these years, the system that we have tinkered with, has failed this country, and we need to move forward from now on.
See you soon with more stories after this short commercial break. Welcome back. You're watching State of Business. Now, former SLPP chairman Professor G.L. Pierce, who recently became an independent in Parliament, says that the International Monetary Fund also expects Sri Lanka to hold its delayed elections soon. Professor Pierce, joining the budget debate in Parliament today, observed that the regime in power has no plan to execute this requirement.
Government is saying that they propose to get support from the International Monetary Fund very soon. The International Monetary Fund has on 3 occasions mentioned the importance of a mandate. They want to deal with a country which has a mandate. The most important manifestation of a mandate is elections. There must be elections, because the IMF makes its resources available to the people of a country through a government. And if there's no nexus between the government and the people, then there is a serious problem with regard to support from the International Monetary Fund. Then there is the GSP Plus issue, on which Sri Lanka's exports are dependent at this moment. That is a lifeline which is keeping us alive. But GSP Plus is neither a gift or an entitlement. The continuing enjoyment of GSP Plus is dependent upon compliance with 27 international instruments, principally the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, democracy, human rights. If there are no elections, if elections are being deliberately not held, then the very basis for enjoyment of GSP Plus is eroded.
Meanwhile, the government has gathered 1 trillion rupees in revenue in the first 7 months of this year, reflecting 37% in growth from a year earlier. As per recent central bank data, government revenue from January to July 2022 amounted to 1,093 billion rupees. In the corresponding period of last year, government revenue totaled 799.8 billion rupees. Tax revenue improved due to the surcharge tax, increased value-added tax and telecommunication levy, imposition of the Social Security contribution levy and high inflation. The increase also comes amidst the sharp contraction in the economy this year. The economy is forecast to contract by 9% in 2022. In the first 7 months, total expenditure and net lending increased 17% to 2.1 trillion rupees from the corresponding period last year. The increase is despite expenditure rationalization attempts and is mainly attributed to the escalation of additional expenditure on relief measures to alleviate ripple effects of the pandemic on the poor and vulnerable. It is also attributed to the unfavorable market developments from increased domestic interest rates and escalating cost of goods and services owing to the high inflation and exchange rate depreciation. The overall budget deficit in the first 7 months was 1 trillion rupees, same as a year ago. During the 7 months ending July 2022, domestic financing decreased to 1,053.4 billion rupees compared to 1,204.6 billion rupees a year ago. Foreign financing recorded a net payment of 43.3 billion rupees during the period from January to July 2022, compared to the net repayment of 190 billion rupees in the first 7 months of 2021. Meanwhile, Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Nandlal Veerasinghe, last week called on exporters to be open and transparent in regard to export proceeds and conversions. The Governor called on industries to improve their reputation in order to receive better support from regulators. Addressing the annual general meeting of the Sri Lanka Apparel Exporters Association, Governor Veerasinghe was also appreciative of the apparel industry's continued assistance to the economic crisis. Chairman of the association, Indika Liyanahevage, addressing those gathered, made representations to secure the future of the industry, which aims to deliver $8 billion in revenue. The chairman also called on the central bank to extend the time for mandatory conversions to 2 months in order to accommodate business cycles, as well as review new export charges imposed at the Colombo port. Governor Veerasinghe advised the industry to address the issue of taxes to the Treasury. However, he noted that given the deficit, the government budget is appropriate as it promotes increased revenue. The governor underscored the need to open Sri Lanka's market through FTAs and other means, as protectionism breeds inefficiencies and costs. Highlighting on mandatory conversions, the governor held that despite the industry claims 55% value addition, the data only points to 14%. Governor Veerasinghe maintained that this fuels the negative perception that the industry is holding export proceeds outside the country. The governor stressed that some reports suggest that in the past 15 years, over $35 billion have been held out of government reach. Stay tuned for stock updates. Welcome back, you're watching State of Business, and now the stock update. Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on positive notes today. The All-Share Price Index gained 161.88 points to close at 8,309.94, and the S&P 20 gained 74.58 points to close at 2,612.76. The turnover was 2.4 billion rupees and over 77 million shares were traded. Coming up next are Forex rates. Well, that's a wrap from today's edition of State of Business. For this and more, subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow us on Facebook. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
State of Business was sponsored by
IW